Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're connecting from. My name is Zachary Stank. I'm the product manager for Control, Safety, and I/O here in Phoenix Contact USA. Thank you very much for joining us for another one of our automation webinars as part of our series. Today, we're talking about remote connectivity and ICS networks and the importance of cybersecurity. Joining us today as our host is our lead specialist for cybersecurity, Miriam Colavinato. Welcome, Miriam. I'm glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I just wanted to announce a couple of things. First of all, Q&A is open during the presentation. That's the only way you'll be able to ask questions today. So if you have a question at all, please type it into chat. It's about a 20-second delay between us presenting and what you see. So if you have a Q&A that comes in, it doesn't get answered right away, we will be going through them at the end. So please hang on tight. If you're not getting your question answered, it will be answered at the end of the presentation. And then if you are viewing this at a future date, or if you know of someone that wants to view this or has information that you can do it, I'm putting a link in chat right now for phoenixcontact.com/US-webinars. You can see all of our upcoming webinars coming up, and you can also go and click on any link that's of a past webinar and view any of them on demand. So thank you very much for joining us today. And without further ado, Miriam, take it away.
Thanks, Zach. Hey, everybody, welcome. My name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Miriam Coladonetto. I am the product marketing specialist for networking and security here at Phoenix Contact. And today we're going to be talking about remote connectivity for industrial control systems, specifically how important it is on the cybersecurity standpoint. We should be taking about 45 minutes. Depending on the questions, depending on how fast we go through the demos, depending if the demos are working properly. But overall, it should be take about 45 minutes or less. And this is what we're going to be talking about. And let's just kind of get right to it, right? So first things first, remote connectivity, right? Remote connectivity for industrial control systems is a tool that we all kind of know the benefit of it, right? Depending on the industry you're at, all of the industrial control systems are different. They are very particular. You know, a water plant needs to, you know, has different processes than an oil and gas or even like an electric power plant might have. They have different goals and they all face different challenges. And all of this kind of has to funnel together for that perfect secure remote access for any of this industry. You know, like the goals of remote access could be, you know, data monitoring, logging, remote controls, direct access to immediate support from vendors or better support from integrators, maintenance, troubleshooting, etc. Now, the challenges that all of this industry face is pretty much everything that has nothing to do with the engineer, right? It's the networking, it's the IT versus OT side of things. It's the cybersecurity, it's the policies that you might have to face. Do you have standards that you have to follow for remote connectivity or overall cybersecurity policies like NERC-CIP can be? So all of this kind of have to fall within this funnel anytime you need some type of remote connectivity, and you have to keep thinking of that. Now, remote connectivity or secure remote access has to kind of fit in between both. It has to fit its IT requirements because IT has done it for a long time, but it also has to be easy to use and it has to be intuitive for engineers and operational plant people. The plant managers and the engineers and the workers, everybody already working at the plant 24/7, 365, they have a pretty hard job that they have to do, and it's technically keeping the light on. With COVID and the past 2020 year, it has showed us, this year has showed us that the industry accept we can easily use remote connectivity and accept working and show that workers are still productive, and you can have expert support like Phoenix Contact, like any other vendor, immediately when you have an issue, and to be able to fulfill your KPIs, which is pretty much keeping the light on, keeping that water running. However, that doesn't take away that controlling the remote access that you need to conduct for multiple vendors, for multiple users, it is a complex task. It's definitely an IT task. And that's what you're going to be measured with on the security side. The secure remote access might be granted only to authorized users or authenticated users, but it's not just that. You want to be very granular. You want to have granular policies, maybe like role-based access control, where your internal users will have access to only that single process on the plant, and the vendors will only have access to one single device or even one single application within that device. And even human supervision is very important. Now, we know that traditional VPNs have been the answer for standard remote connectivity. Water, wastewater is one of those industries that is very common. You can see remote assets connecting to like a main central SCADA plant using a traditional VPN. The use of a virtual private network or VPN is just common. It just provides, so for those of you that are not familiar with VPNs, it provides an encrypted tunnel in between a client and a server. And through that, through that encrypted tunnel, you can send any type of data that gets, kind of encrypted, wrapped into security layers and sent to the other side. Now, what is the security that it kind of already happening? It's happening at this layer of the VPN. There is a couple handshakes that have to do of the networking, that have to do of the security. So there's multiple VPN requirements, and this is why secure remote access is an IT job, because it becomes super easy and super complex fast, very fast. So these are the security attributes that, for example, an IPsec VPN can have. So the first things if you want to do is authentication. Authentication can be done through multiple ways. Authentication is like when you walk into an airport and you show your passport or your ID, making sure that the person who holds that airplane ticket is the right person and not somebody else. So that's exactly what happens in the VPN. You have two VPN gateways that need to authenticate to each other. You want to do it through certificates, that is a recommended best practice, but you can also do it through pre-shared keys, that is nothing more than a password. Certificates are that passport, that unique virtual document that will allow them to authenticate the most secure answer. The next level of security is the encryption. The higher the encryption, the better you're going to be. However, it does have a little bit of a performance backdrop. We do recommend AES 256 as the highest encryption standard available. Some of the other ones are good enough, obviously, if you are looking for better performance within your VPN. And then the hashing is nothing more than a mathematical algorithm that kind of just grabs the data and, puts it through that mathematical algorithm and just change it uniquely, that when he gets to the other side, the other mathematical formula kind of like fixes it back together in the same correct order, and he makes sure it was not changed on the way. So hashing kind of protects the data on transit at that point. Again, same thing, you just kind of pick that hashing algorithm and you're good to go. Another complexity that a VPN requires is not just the security settings that you have to fulfill when you're building a VPN, but also the networking requirements, right? So if you're going to build your own VPN solution on an industrial control settings, you have to have an internet service provider that provides you a public IP that gives you, or a DNS name. You have to make sure you own the firewall policies at your, for example, SCADA or main office, because you want to open the ports for the VPNs to come through. Like, all of those things are kind of networking requirements. You want to make sure the routes are in place and all of that. So if you kind of put it like, take a step back and you put it on a big picture scenario, you have, and if we take in consideration all of the items that I just mentioned, and you want to deploy your own industrial control system solution, there is a lot of, it's a full-time job, right? You need to make sure you create certificates per user, make sure you open the networks, right? Open the public IP. You want to make sure you have additional audits and logs and connect this VPN gateways through like a SIEM. And all of this just becomes very complex. You want to monitor it. Security is continuous monitoring. So you want to monitor it to make sure everything is working as expected as well. This can become a complex task, as you can see. It's certificates per user, building the configuration for remote assets, opening the ports, working with IT, creating logging mechanisms. So the idea of all of this, the more users and the more remote devices that you have, the more granularity and the more complexity you're going to get within your own VPN solution. And most of the time for industrial control systems, users, owners of plants, in order to overcome this complexity, some of you might have deployed other remote access tools that can be easier or more intuitive, but sometimes they can be more insecure, right? This might have some drawbacks, like VPNs can be easy. VPNs can be easy depending on what you're doing. And I'm going to show you some of the examples of other solutions that can easily work, but are proven to be not as secure. So let's jump into the first one. TeamViewer. TeamViewer is a great tool. We use it internally. It's a desktop to desktop connection for remote, full access of the computer. We use it within Phoenix Contact as our, IT to users type of support application, but you have to understand TeamViewer wasn't built for industrial control systems. It works. It's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. For engineering managers, you can download it into your industrial control systems laptop, and you can download it at home, and then just kind of you put the username and password, and you are connected to that computer as if you were there. It was I see it more as a necessary evil for industrial control systems to use. I'm not bashing on them. They have great support system. They have great security plans. It depends if you are using them or not. You still have to log in. You still have to create some type of plan, maybe more of a premium plan than a free version. But overall, they do have the security that will help you achieve what you need to achieve. However, it's still a desktop to desktop communication. And to show you, what I see as, and again, this is my personal view, this is not what happened, but what happened, one security incident that happened early this year is to show you, look how easy it is for people just to hack TeamViewer. There's been so many things, and if you quickly Google it or YouTube it, you're going to find so many examples. And one example of that I was kind of getting ahead of myself right there is what happened at the beginning of the year. February 5th of 2021, there was an incident, a cybersecurity incident that happened through the application of TeamViewer in a wastewater plant in the city of Altamar. This is nothing more than an incident summary. Somebody accessed that water treatment system using a TeamViewer session and just increase the level of sodium hydroxide to a dangerous level. They tried to change it and they kind of logged back out. Thankfully, somebody was there and they saw the attack or the intrusion, and the user or the worker right there at the plant kind of just went back and reverted the changes, and nothing really happened. Nothing major happened at that point. But because it still was a dangerous level, this has to be reported. The FBI had to be involved. And just as an FYI, there is a video out there on YouTube you can find showing the exact same information that I have here. There's nothing there. So my question here with the little bit of information that I have shared is for you guys to consider is TeamViewer, the villain? Was TeamViewer the villain at this specific scenario? And on my perspective, they were not the villain. They were just a tool, and it was an unsecure tool at that point, or the way it was configured and used. It was more of a user error or lack of attention on the security aspect of that specific tool. But overall, TeamViewer was not the villain. It's just a tool that we have available. Make sure that the tools that you're using are actually secure tools, or you're using them securely. The next example is probably what I would never recommend. Is one of the most unsecure options that you can still see active on industrial control systems out there, and is what is called port forwarding. You see it a lot on cellular networks, and just because it's easy enough to grab a cellular modem, put it in front of a PLC or a remote site, whatever data you're trying to gather, and you kind of just do that, right? You kind of all right, grab the modem or that router, that cellular modem, and just say, all right, allow me from this public IP, from this internet-facing IP, allow me to go in and access that PLC. And that's what the router is doing. It's literally just opening a hole and allowing anybody through in there. Port forwarding, it's one of the things that you can still make a little bit more secure. However, a scan on the internet, if you know what you're doing, there are tools online that can easily show you open ports on the internet. One of those tools is it's a website called Shodan. And this is nothing more than an example of, or a screenshot of one cellular modem. And I'm not picking on anybody here. This is an mGuard. So this is one of our products, one of my products right here. You can see them right here on the screen. It's one of my products that has a cellular modem and it's just connected out there to the internet. And if you take a look at some of the ports that are open, to the general, maybe the general public, you might not exactly know unless you're working on cybersecurity. But to me, that I know and I've worked with mGuards before, this is an mGuard that is publicly facing on the internet. I can find it on this specific website, and it's showing me that it has a couple ports open. It shows me it has port 443, if you see it right there on your screen on the blue icons. And it also shows me that it has port 44818. If you're familiar with ICS, if you're familiar with the mGuard, 443 is actually the port that the mGuard speaks to. So the web browser itself, I can log in, and I want to bet maybe the password has been changed, but maybe not. And then 44818, some of you might be familiar with that, but it's nothing more than the Ethernet IP port. So you can technically just grab, a software, vendor software, and open it onto that specific port and maybe upload the configuration profile of whatever PLC is running on the background. That can easily happen. And, you can also see, like, service provider, you can see the public IP is connected to Verizon. So it gives me a little bit of data points that I don't show on this screen, but you can scroll down and see more data points, including the local IP address of that PLC, which is pretty dangerous. Now, moving on, I'm going to go back to the goal of this presentation, or the main message of this presentation, which is not of all VPNs have to be complex, right? This is something key that I want everybody to remember. us.cloud.mguard.com. That is one of the services that us here at Phoenix Contact provides, that gives you that easy to use, low cost, secure remote connectivity for any industrial applications. It's pretty much straightforward. The setup is straightforward. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're, if you have users overseas. It doesn't matter if you have users working from home, or even if they're working at your plant. If you need remote connectivity from a vendor like us, or from your engineers working from home, to all of your remote systems, you can do it through a secure VPN using our mGuard Secure Cloud. And through the next couple of minutes, I'm going to walk you through a couple of the more secure settings. I'm going to give you an overview, a couple of the more secure settings, and why, and even show you a report that I have from the same website, Shodan, from an mGuard that I have connected here at my desk. So how does it work? We have nothing to hide on the mGuard Secure Cloud. This is why I'm more than willing to show and explain how is the architecture look like, what are we doing, what are we not doing, and what do you need as a user to be able to connect and log in. So the first thing we are an infrastructure as a service type of cloud, and we are hosted in AWS out of the East Coast. I'm going to say somewhere northern Virginia. So being an infrastructure as a cloud, or also known as IaaS, what we're doing is nothing more than grabbing the infrastructure and just giving it ready to you. And that's what you see on the right-hand side right there. That's our infrastructure, that's our cloud. We have a couple security settings because we have VPN gateways for your users, we have VPN gateways for your machine. And not just that, we make kind of all the infrastructure super easy to use with that website. We have a web server application, or the us.cloud.mguard.com website, that you log in, you create an account, you log in, and you manage everything as the user, to be able to access all of your devices, to be able to allow other users to connect. So it gives you all of that. As soon as you create an account, you will have that unique account with dedicated certificate database. So you will have certificates only for you and your VPNs, for your users and your machines. You have unique routing tables and NAT translation. So that pretty much gives the uniqueness on the backend, on the infrastructure, to make sure your data gets routed to your devices and nowhere else, or vice versa. You have unlimited users, so you can add as many users as you want. It could be internal employees, external vendors, integrators, partners. It could be, if you're an OEM, it could be the same end users that is trying to access their own machine, because we have the security to be able to protect you as the manager of the secure cloud account. The only thing that you want to keep in mind, and this is kind of like what we don't do, and the majority of we do this because of security, is we are a technician to machine only type of support. So somebody needs to log in. We do support second factor authentication. Somebody has to start a VPN. We encrypt the traffic all the way. And somebody has to make sure you click on the selected machine, and we're going to see a little demo. But overall, we don't do data analysis. We don't do data storage. That is the future. But as of right now, and in a sister service, but as of right now, the Ember Secure Cloud, we don't do any of that because of security. We don't want to store your data. We don't want to analyze your data. We don't want to see anything with your data because of security. That's your data. We want you to kind of make sure we don't pretty much log anything that goes through that tunnel. But you still have that access. And we take the complexity way down, because you don't have to deal with certificates. You don't have to deal with public IPs. You don't have to deal with IT departments. We are already giving you that on this service. And that's kind of how everything works. As soon as you have all your account, you have added multiple users, you have added multiple machines. The connectivity itself, it's kind of like nature. There is some learning that you have to do at the beginning, but overall it's pretty much just learning a new website after the fact. Now, I mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it again. If you are not a user or an account owner of the Ember Secure Cloud, us.cloud.emgar.com is where you go and register. As soon as you get registered, you will get an activation email, maybe 24-hour stops, that says, hey, this is your account ID. This is what you're going to be using to log in with your credentials. As I mentioned before, we have two-factor authentication, so that's very key. I'm going to mention that too. But the steps are, now that you're logged in, you're a new owner, you then want to get an mGuard. You want to get your users connected. So make sure you follow those requirements. Okay. Remember, free service only requirements are to get the supported hardware and the supported software. And we have a variety of hardware that you can find, all the way from lower cost 4G modems to like a redundant, mGuard that falls from WAN to cellular if you need it, and you just connect it all. So let me give you a quick demo of how the setup or how the connectivity looks like after you have set up the first time. Okay. So I'm going to share real quick my screen, and you should see my demo or my mGuard right there. So as you can see, this is nothing more. Again, us.cloud.emgar.com. I am already logged in. This is an account that we have set up for demo purposes, for testing purposes. But as you can see, it's not, 4 main menus, that you can have. We're going to kind of just walk through the main setup. I already have a couple devices connected to the cloud. Overall, if you're a new user, you won't have any, but you do have levels that you want to organize your items here. So in this case, you can see that I have, groups of machines. So in this case, it's a sales account demo. So I just organized them by sales region. You can see the different machines right there. And internally, I have individual groups of machines. So I'm giving you a way to organize like a database, groups of devices, maybe locations or type of machines or geographical. It doesn't really matter. It's a way that you want to organize them. And every equipment inside of here, it's nothing more than an mGuard device or what we call a TC Cloud client. We also support, just as an FYI, we also support our PLC Next device. So you can connect your PLC Next directly into the mGuard Secure Cloud. So after you have a couple of machines set up, you guys can see right here on the status bar, I'm already connected, I'm already logged in. And what I want to show you is I already selected, so you can see a start and a stop button right here. I already have one of my mGuards, and as you can see, is one mGuard is connected to my AT&T. So it's a cellular mGuard connected to the internet through a cellular modem. Right now, you can see a couple machines, and what I'm going to do is just click on that start button, right? I already have them connected. This is the way that you will do it. You will provide the support. And after all, I'm fully connected. As you can see, I should have probably lost connection, and behind that mGuard, I don't have a lot. You can have a full network or even multiple ranges of subnets, just as an FYI, keep that in mind. But right now, just for demo purposes, I have one of our PLC Next devices. It's actually one of our PLC Next starter kits with one of the demos. So let's wait for that to get back real quick. And it's going to ask me for credentials to log in, or there you go. So I'm just going to log in real quick. Come on. And let's get in there. There you go. So you are live on a device that I have right next to me through a cellular modem. As you can see, I'm going to start flipping some of the I/O in that PLC. So now you see live that all the lights are on, and even the analog input that I can show that you guys can see, I went from 0 to scale value 59. So it went all the way to the yellow. So how fast from the way I control my PLC right here to all the way to the screen. So that's one of the things. So I can see what's going on. I can see that happening almost real time. Okay. So I'm going to go kind of just back to what I had it, just kind of a couple of values, go back to 0. Perfect. So that's what I wanted you guys to see. After I'm done with this PLC, after I'm done with troubleshooting, remember from here, I can pull data, I can do FTP, I can do SNMP, I can open my PLC Next engineer software and connect to that PLC and change the programming line. I can do a lot of things after I have that start button, because pretty much the tunnel opens to that machine, the entire system, and you can do everything as if you were connected locally to the PLC. So those are the cool features. Those are the features that all of this secure cloud gives you. But what are the security features, you might wonder? And that's when we're going to go back to the slides, just so I can show you real quick in a more organized manner the settings, okay? So we were right here. Let me start sharing the screen again. There we go. So I showed you the demo, and how easy it is. You still have to take a couple of steps to connect and to add all of your devices. But overall, after you've done that, it's nothing more than connecting and start and talk to your machines, right? But we haven't talked about the security. So let me kind of give you a little bit on the security portion. Yes, I've been talking about multiple layers of, okay, it could be the plant owning the account, or it could be the OEM owning the mGuard Secure Cloud account. However, we give you the options that it doesn't really matter who owns the account, right? You can just give access to whoever you want with the different user roles. So we have administrators. So administrators can log in and manage the cloud infrastructure itself. You can add more devices, you can add more users, you can create more machines, and of course you can still provide the support. When we have the users, which is only like log in and click on that start button. So as a manager, I want to give them the credentials to log in. I want to give them the user VPN to log in. But overall, they will only be able to click on that start button. FYI, we do support second-factor authentication on those credentials. So internally and external users can be tied to that second-factor authentication. We support PIN to the email, or we support TOTP applications like Google Authenticator, for example. And this is nothing more than you don't control if that user for that vendor leaves the company or was fired. So if you kind of tie them to that PIN for email, they won't have access to their corporate email after they leave, technically, so they won't be able to log into your cloud account. All right, so keep that in mind, because that's very important for second-factor authentication, right? That's a scenario that you can have. The next security feature, it gets tied very closely to the user. So if you go back to like, all right, I'm gonna give vendor, Phoenix Contact as a vendor, access to my equipment, so Miriam can help me troubleshoot some of the mGuards, and maybe the Yuri, which is our PLC Next specialist, can help me troubleshoot the PLC Next stuff. Perfect, but how do I, make sure they only see the machines? Or maybe you are an OEM who sells multiple packing machines that you want to, and the end user wants to have access to their equipment. You want to make sure they have some type of restriction to only see their 3 machines versus the other end user who has 100 of them. So you can actually tie per user. We have a feature called the access permissions. So at this point, it's nothing more than an additional database where you say, okay, I'm going to create a database of machines. Database of machines is machine A is going to be only allowed, you're going to add only the machines that you want vendor A to see. And then you're going to create a second database that says, all right, all of these machines, 15 to 17, are only going to be allowed to see by vendor N. Or this integrator will only be allowed to see this. And if they have that user role, they will be able to log in and only see the 3 or 4 or 100 machines that you allow them to see. Everything else, even if you have thousands of machines on the secure cloud, will show to them as hidden or non-existent as soon as they log in. So keep that in mind. That's access permissions. Going down one more level of granularity is a new feature that we have included this year, or 2 new features that we have included this year. So before, we had a little bit of a limitation that we had to kind of put an mGuard on every /24 network, but now we're not doing that. We can actually connect multiple /24 networks to the same mGuard, which is a great thing for some of the users. However, as soon as you give a user access to this, you still have to give that granularity. So how do we restrict users for every subnet? So again, same thing. If we have multiple users that are allowed to see the multiple access, the credentials and the 2-factor authentication and all of it is all the same thing. But now you're creating an additional database. Besides only being able to see that specific machine, now they're only able to talk to that specific network. So again, we're kind of just layering databases and databases on security per user. You don't have to deal with IP addresses. You don't have to deal with restricting them one by one. You kind of just deal with them by name. So it's just by name. You say, all right, user 1, you're going to be allowed to connect to machine, whatever name you name that machine, and then only connect to this network because that's the network you want to do it. And just as an FYI, this is not, you can even be more granular because the mGuard allows you to be more granular at the hardware level, that you can even be very specific. So user A can only talk to device 1, and that's it. So the secure cloud will give you the granularity all the way to the network itself, but even the hardware will allow you to be very granular and only allow them to access one device or even one application through that device. So for example, you have an HMI or you have an industrial PC, you can only allow them to see port 80, which is the HTTP port, but not remote desktop. So they won't be able to fully access and control that computer remotely. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Hey, Mariam, we have a question in chat. Abdul wants to know how many devices can we connect to an mGuard, a single mGuard?
Okay, I sort of mentioned it a little bit, but at this point, through the mGuard Secure Cloud, we don't have like a limitation. We just give you however big the network is, right? There is a steps that you have to follow, and it all depends on how the network is set up. Technically, if you're doing a point-to-point scenario, if you want to manage your own, you can make that network as big as you can, as big as you want it to be. You can make that remote connection however you want. You just have to follow standard networking procedures. You know, like that network is going to be huge. Your mGuard is going to be the gateway, and that's it. That's how you kind of create a subnet. And the VPN will be part of that entire subnet. Now, on the mGuard Secure Cloud, and I think a couple slides back right here shows you, we can have multiple subnets behind the mGuard. So you can have 192.168.1, 192.168.100. So at that point, it's just, you know, every host, it's the 4 octet, which is, you know, 254 hosts per network. So multiply that. We don't have a big limitation on the secure cloud. It's the mGuard at the end is nothing more than a router, so it will act as you want him to act as a router. It could be a very small network or it could be a very big network. So thanks, Stank. Moving on with one more important but less kind of feature functionality is the logs. Network monitoring and like the importance of knowing who did that, you know, who connected to what, when, what time, and how long we're there, it's very important. And not just because you might need it right now, but you might need it later. On a cybersecurity application, if you do have an incident, you want to have this information. You want to know what time it happened, who was connected, and we have what we call the Logbook Capability. So we have a screenshot right now where it shows you exactly that. It shows you as soon as you click on that start button, it's going to start a log, and it's going to show you the user, which would have been me, what time that starts, what time did I start that connection, what time did I stop it, with the date, how long was I in there, and you can even download that or export that information. This logbook can be used in a couple different ways for auditing purposes at the end. So this would technically be forensics or cyber forensics if there is some type of incident happening. Or if you are an OEM, you can even use this as a billing mechanism for your end customers. If you're supporting your customers for troubleshooting and support after your warranty period expires, you can come back here and say, oh, I support your machines, or my engineers support your machines for 3 hours in the month of March. So these are the billing hours and this is a report. So keep that in mind. Now, one more thing, because we are talking about security. If you remember what the screenshot that I showed you before, again, this is nothing more than Shodan. Shodan is a website publicly available that you can, it's a search website. You put whatever you want to find in there, and you know, you're going to find it. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I literally just put mGuard and I was able to find multiple accesses. And as soon as I click on them, I show you, listen, I can see an mGuard that it is connected through a Verizon wireless network. I see the ports that are open. For my expertise, I can easily say that's a port forwarding. And if you take a look at the name itself, it's an mGuard, it's a server name. Now, I want to show you the difference of an out-of-the-box cloud configuration to an mGuard, to the mGuard that I have right here on my desk. So out of the box, it took me a second to find it because even the mGuard name was not showing up. So keep that in mind. So the first thing is I knew enough of my own mGuard. I have a static public IP. I can see it. So I was able to find it through there. But as you can see, you know, I am connected through AT&T. And this is an mGuard Secure Cloud configuration. So I still can see I have a PLC connected behind it. I have, you know, all the connectivity that I need. I have full access to anything or any of the devices behind. But if you take a look, I only see one port open, which obviously makes sense, which is the IPsec VPN port. That's my IPsec VPN port. It's needed. You're going to need it because I'm doing an IPsec. But overall, I'm not showing that it is an mGuard connection. It is not tagged. So I don't know if you take a look, I'm going to go one slide back. Right here, it is not tagged as an industrial control systems. You can see the tags on the red right there under the public IP industrial control systems. And I'm going to move ahead a slide. I only see a tag as a VPN because I am using a VPN. All right, so that was the demo that I just showed you. That was my cellular mGuard that I connected in, and it doesn't have anything else except the mGuard Secure Cloud configuration. Okay, so even for a website like Shodan, it will not be able to pick up that it's an industrial control system, that is an mGuard device. It's nothing more than another cellular modem that is doing a VPN at this point. It could be anything. It could be a cellular, a phone device, an iOS device for that matter. Okay, and just to prove you guys, screenshot, or I can even logged in. This is my mGuard. This is the public IP of that device. That is the same device that it is connected through the AT&T, through the device, to my mGuard Secure Cloud account that I was just kind of demoing at. So we're kind of getting to the end of closing this presentation. As I mentioned before, we have so much more on the mGuard product family. Those are kind of like the features of the Secure Cloud, but even just integrating a combination of the mGuard Secure Cloud services with the mGuard hardware and the additional features we have within the product family, it's a great mix for all of the control that you need and security that you need for remote networks, for secure remote access. It doesn't really matter the industry, honestly. It doesn't really matter the application. You can even have control. We have, for example, filtering inside of the VPN. We have central management. The mGuard has logs that it can be sent through a SIEM for forensics operations and all of that. So again, VPN setup do have a level of complexity. It is certificates per users, it's opening ports, managing public IPs, talking to IT, creating routes, creating subnets. However, the mGuard hardware pair up with the mGuard Secure Cloud services gives you that automatic VPN builder and certificate management. It's like the perfect recipe for success. There is new mGuard Secure Cloud features, and we continue to give you more security and more features to have more granularity per user, per connection, per network. And all of those together on the mGuard Secure Cloud makes a game changer for the secure remote access and secure remote connectivity for industrial control systems applications. So with that, I want to thanks everybody for kind of attending this live session. And if you have any question, just feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always active there. You can email me the questions, mcaldonado@phoenixcontact.com. And, we're here to answer your questions and to help you implement any IPsec VPN or secure cloud infrastructure for your needs. Thank you so much.